When Les Paul's children finally unlocked his vault after his passing, they were speechless. Inside lay a musician's dream: rare, one-of-a-kind guitars, million-dollar patents, and royalty checks that would never stop rolling in. But that was just the surface. What followed was a saga of bitter family feuds, jaw-dropping auctions, and the shocking story of how a simple $5 contract became one of the most valuable fortunes in music history. Born Lester William Polsfuss on June 9, 1915, in Waukesha, Wisconsin, Les Paul was destined to be an inventor. His mother, Evelyn, had ties to Milwaukee's brewing industry, while his father, George, ran a garage where young Lester scavenged spare parts for his wild experiments. Even the family's wooden staircase became one of his test subjects. He carved into the steps to change their pitch, effectively turning them into an instrument. His mother found it clever, though she wasn't thrilled about the destruction. After his parents' divorce, his mother decided to shorten their last name from Polsfuss to Polfuss to avoid anti-German sentiment after World War I. Les would later adopt the name Les Paul, though he never made it official. By the age of 5, he was already a performer, standing on tables at Rotary Club meetings, belting out, "How you gonna keep 'em down on the farm?" His passion was clear, but not everyone saw his potential. A music teacher once told his mother, "Your boy will never learn music." But Les didn't just learn, he reinvented. At 8, he dismantled a harmonica just to understand how it worked, then reassembled it and taught himself to play. By 9, he had built his own homemade radio, pulling sound straight from the air with an antenna he strung between trees. At 10, he wanted to play both guitar and harmonica at the same time, so he invented a hands-free harmonica holder using nothing but a wire coat hanger. His brother, seeing his relentless tinkering, brought home extra hangers from a dry cleaner. Les kept refining the design, making each version better than the last. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 1925, while playing guitar at a drive-in, someone in the crowd yelled, "Red, your guitar's not loud enough." Most kids would have shrugged it off. Not Les. He saw it as a challenge. That night, he tore the mouthpiece from his mother's telephone, wired it to a radio speaker, and jammed a phonograph needle into his guitar's bridge, accidentally inventing one of the earliest electric pickups. He was 12 years old. By 13, he was performing in roadhouses under the stage name Red Hot Red, making $5 a night, a solid paycheck for the time. At 15, he took things up a notch, creating 2 alter egos, Rhubarb Red for country music and Les Paul for jazz, effortlessly switching between them depending on the crowd. By 17, he had dropped out of school to hit the road, first touring with Rube Tronson's Texas Cowboys, and later joining Sonny Joe Wolverton's band. His big break came at Beekman's Barbecue, where he played for tips. Some nights, he made $14, enough to fund his never-ending hunger for radio parts. For Les, music and invention weren't separate pursuits. They were 2 sides of the same coin, each fueling the other. Then, in 1934, Chicago changed everything. Playing at the Chicago World's Fair opened doors. He landed major radio gigs, hosting shows on WBBM and WRJN. By day, he performed country music as Rhubarb Red. By night, he transformed into Les Paul, the jazz guitarist. But this wasn't just a stylistic shift, it was a transformation that would define him. Chicago put him face to face with legends. He met Art Tatum, whose impossibly fast piano playing forced Les to rethink what was musically possible. But the most life-changing encounter came with Django Reinhardt, a guitarist who had lost 2 fingers in a fire, yet played with unmatched brilliance. Instead of seeing it as a limitation, Django turned his injury into an advantage, inventing a completely new style of guitar playing. Les took it all in. He wasn't just a musician, he was a sponge, absorbing techniques, breaking rules, and rewriting the playbook. And he was just getting started. Night after night in Chicago, he didn't just perform, he studied. He played alongside the best jazz and country musicians, learning their secrets, blending their styles, and crafting a sound that was unmistakably his own. But more than anything, He learned that music was about breaking barriers, about proving the impossible was possible. That philosophy stayed with him for life. When Django Reinhardt unexpectedly passed away in 1953, Les was devastated. The guitarist had shaped his understanding of music in ways few ever knew. In a quiet tribute, Les Paul personally helped pay for his funeral. But if music was his passion, sound was his obsession. By the 1930s, guitarists faced a major problem. Acoustic guitars simply weren't loud enough to compete with full bands. Even early electric pickups weren't cutting it. Les tried everything, stuffing the body of his guitar with rags, wood, even plaster of Paris to stop the dreaded feedback. But nothing worked. He needed a better solution. And when Les Paul needed something that didn't exist, he built it. One fateful night in a Wisconsin club, desperation led to innovation. Les Paul, struggling with his guitar's weak sound, took a gamble, rigging a phonograph needle to amplify it. It worked, but only as a quick fix. Then a thought struck him. The issue wasn't just the pickups or amplifiers, it was the guitar itself. By the late 1930s, Paul realized hollow body guitars weren't built for the power he craved. Their very structure turned them into feedback machines. The answer? Scrap the hollow body entirely. In 1941, he built something audacious, the log, a plain 4x4 wooden plank with a guitar neck and pickups. To make it look more traditional, he attached the sides of an old Epiphone hollow body, but those were purely cosmetic. The real magic was in the solid core. The result? No more feedback, no unwanted vibrations, just sustained, pure sound. Les Paul had just invented the solid-body electric guitar. By 1943, Paul moved to Los Angeles, a decision that would forever reshape music. Encouraged by Bing Crosby, he turned his Hollywood garage into something extraordinary, a recording lab where he bent the rules of sound itself. He built his own equipment, even repurposing a Cadillac flywheel into a recording lathe. He experimented relentlessly, overdubbing, sound layering, speed manipulation, all in pursuit of a new sonic frontier. Musicians flocked to his studio, eager to witness the wizardry firsthand. Using acetate discs, Paul pioneered multi-track recording, layering sound upon sound with precision. Some tracks took hundreds of takes. The industry had never seen anything like it. Then, in 1948, he unveiled Lover, an instrumental featuring 8 layers of guitar, all played by him. Columbia Records rejected it, baffled by its futuristic sound, but Capitol Records took a chance. When it dropped, it sent shockwaves through the industry. What Paul was doing in his garage wasn't just music, it was a revolution. His innovations in multi-track recording laid the foundation for modern music production. But he wasn't just changing music in the studio, he was making history on stage. In 1945, Les Paul recorded It's Been a Long, Long Time with Bing Crosby, creating a post-war anthem that topped the charts for weeks. Recognizing Paul's talent, Crosby gifted him an Ampex Model 200A tape recorder, which Paul modified to enable multi-track recording, a breakthrough that transformed music. In January 1948, a car crash shattered Paul's right arm. Doctors suggested amputation, but Paul insisted on having it set at a permanent playing angle, sacrificing comfort for his passion, music. During his recovery, Les Paul couldn't play, but he could innovate. While refining his ideas, fate brought him Mary Ford, a singer with a voice like silk. By 1949, they were married, and together, they dominated the chart. From 1950 to 1957, they scored 28 hits, selling 6 million records in 1951 alone. But their success wasn't just talent, it was technology. Paul pioneered multi-tracking, close mic recording, and even built an echo chamber into their home. For live shows, he created the Les Pulverizer, blending live music with pre-recorded sound, decades ahead of its time. In 1952, he partnered with Gibson to launch the Les Paul guitar. Initially overlooked, it became iconic in the hands of rock legends. His recording innovations reshaped music production, and even after a near-fatal crash, he never stopped pushing boundaries. In his 70s, he returned to the stage. At 90, he won 2 Grammys. When he passed in 2009 at 94, he left behind more than a legacy. He left behind the very foundation of modern music.